Well, hello and welcome. You're the lucky few. I'm hoping there's more online, but thanks for joining us over here in the Windermere room. My name's Matt Dodd. I've been helping people transform the way that they work and collaborate for several years. And I kind of first encountered Yammer 7 or 8 years ago, and it's when I first started using it that I really realized it could actually transform the way that people worked. I was actually at a training course and I was running a team of people who looked after our company's website, social media feeds, and intranet, and I got that dreaded phone call that the website had broken. It wasn't available to the public. Now, I had an old iPhone, an old smartphone, and I was able to go onto Yammer and go, right, what's happening? What's broken? And then someone else from the team said, oh, okay, this is happening, we're fixing this. And then there was someone else chipped in. Oh, we've now got this sorted, we're now doing this. I can't remember what the problem was. I couldn't remember, it got solved. But what I really took away from that experience was that when I look back at that conversation thread in Yammer, I kind of suddenly realized there was me in this conference. There was someone in my team who was working from home, and there were several people in the office. And I looked through that conversation and I couldn't tell who was where. It was just this natural conversation that solved this problem of our website being down. And at that point, I thought, wow, this is going to change how we can really work together. And ever since then, I've been a huge advocate of using enterprise social networks, because I think that the way that they are able to connect and really foster that group conversation is something really, really powerful. And in my current role, which is at Bankwest over in Australia, I get to do that job every day by helping to manage the digital workplace and by delivering that collaboration and connection, of which Yammer is a massive part for us. So, just a quick geography lesson. If you don't know where Perth is, it's this little purple spot right over there on the west coast of Australia. It's actually one of the most remote cities in the world. So it gives us some, some issues around how isolated we are. And it's also a 35-hour journey here. So, it's a lot. I've come a long way, but hopefully it'll be all worth it. And just to give a bit of context, I think that isolation has really impacted our company. We've been established since 1895, so we're one of these, we are an old traditional bank. That's how we started. But I think that isolation has really given us that kind of bit of independence and that kind of determination to think a little bit differently. We've had no one kind of interfering with what we're doing really for a long time. And we had some really kind of key innovations in the 60s. We did mobile banking, and I'm not talking about the thing that you get on your cell phone. It was a caravan that used to drive out to some of our remote towns that we serviced. We had drive-through banking. You could pull up in your car and do that. But it was well before kind of ATM. So we've always had that little edge about thinking differently, and that really helps us when we serve our 1.1 million customers, and actually really kind of crystallised when we won the Money Magazine's Bank of the Year in 2017. So for a small bank, we were really, really proud of that moment. And I guess that geographical challenge for us, okay, it's constrained within a country, but we have about 4,500 people, and you can see how we're spread out across Australia. We've got about 3,500 people in and around Perth and Western Australia, but we are spread out across the entire country. And to give you a bit of context, Western Australia alone, which is our kind of home state and where we really, really function, it is actually the size of both Alaska and Texas combined. So it's, not a small place, although it always looks small on maps because we're at the bottom, you see. It's one of those natural things from the projection. But as well as that kind of geographical challenge, we've got people spread out across the country, and how do we engage those people? Like any company, we're really facing into those challenges around digital transformation, around disruption, around colleague engagement. How do we get people to deliver that fantastic customer experience? And how do we enable our colleagues to serve customers better? And one of the things that we've really found with that is, the more that we engage our colleagues, the better they serve their customers. And when I talk about engagement, for me, what we're really talking about is how do we unleash that potential. There's been a lot of talk this week around, unleashing people's potential and creativity. And for me, that's absolutely what we want to do with our engagement activity. It's really getting, we really try and get people to bring their whole selves to work. Now, the slide that's up at the minute, we have Wear It Purple Day. I'm not sure whether it's international, but it's certainly in Australia. It's a day where we show our support for LGBTI rights. And so everyone comes into work wearing it purple. This is our grad intake. They got there. This is straight off our Yammer feed. We took this photo. So that, we really want people to be able to feel themselves and have that psychological safety. There's certainly some talks I've been to, when people talk about Yammer and having that kind of psychological safety. So that's what we want to try and encourage. And it's really where, for us, Yammer fits in. So when I look at Yammer, and some people I know will hopefully have seen this, if anyone went to Scott Warden, Simon Terry, and Kai Kea from Swoop's talk yesterday evening, that maturity model that they spoke about has been really fundamental for us around how we understand that journey for Yammer. And as a community manager, I found it really, really important when I talk to people, when I talk and do coaching for Yammer. It's been really, really powerful for us. And if you haven't seen it, it's fairly simple. Look up the talk if you want the full session. Definitely worth it. But for me, the first stage of anything with these social networks is, how do we get people on the platform? How do you get people to adopt it and engage with that? And I kind of, basically it's like a looking thing. They're actually at least looking at the tool, and it's that start point. And then we move on to the stages where people start to connect and share information. So I've kind of said that's doing. It's people are actually doing something. But really, obviously, as a business, a lot of external social networks. If you were managing an external social network, you'd be stopping at that point, going, great. We're getting people on there. We can sell all this advertising. But internally, we don't have that option. Now, that's not what the network's about. For me, it's really about this last point, which is around adding value, and and really kind of solving and then innovating. And really, there's been talk all week around this inner and outer loop. It's about how do we engage those people to actually give us some value. And I'd like you to kind of bear that model in mind, and I'll come back to it because it's been really important for me when I've been demonstrating around how that works with senior managers and the questions that I seem to constantly get as a community manager, and I'm sure probably a lot of them will resonate. So thinking about that model and thinking about the activity that we do, and we were in a position where we'd had Yammer for a long time. We'd had the freemium version. We had an organic kind of growth when we first put it in, really kind of IT focused. They loved it, but that was it. It was very, very much, we'd hit that plateau. If people have seen some other ideas, you've got a bit of engagement. We've got a level of people on there, but not that many. We were certainly not getting any of that kind of real value out of the service. So when I started as community manager, we really started to think around how are we going to use this? How are we going to use Yammer? Where does it fit in? So we came up with some kind of rules of engagement, I guess, and they're my thoughts around how we approach Yammer. So the first thing was, we're going to make it part of our campaigns. So we didn't go out and do a big, let's do a Yammer push. It was, okay, we're going to make this just a natural place for us to talk about our campaigns, to be that outlet. So when we did campaign activity, whatever it was, we'd say, right, okay, if people want to talk about it, if we want people to get feedback about it, we're going to put a hashtag on and we're going to use Yammer. We set up support groups. Things like, I'm going to mention the LGBTI Day. We have an actual LGBTI group called Unity So that's for both people who identify as LGBTI, but also allies. So, we allow those groups to set up. We set these things up that support our broader organisational campaigns. And the other thing which I think is really interesting, and I think people have actually probably been doing it here, is whenever we have a big, large-scale event, we will have someone who's allocated to socially report that. So if people can't make the actual event, there's somebody whose job it is to, take photos, put stuff out onto Yammer, put feedback on there, ask for feedback, so people can still feel that they're actually being included in these kind of conversations. We really work to try and make it that place to be. So we're fortunate our exec team eventually got it, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So they're on there. We do these, exec Q&As, yam jams, whatever you want to call them. So, as part of that cycle of what we do, and we advertise these in lots of other channels, but we do those Q&As. We've allowed people to put up videos and pictures. Trust me, I've had conversations with various organisations with being involved with Yammer for a long time, and it still amazes me that people go, well, we're not going to allow video, we're not going to allow document uploads. I mean, the reality for us, if you want some stats to throw back, we've had a mature network, 95% of the files that are on our Yammer are pictures. People are sensible. If they're working on stuff, they put it in SharePoint. They don't they don't really put that stuff on Yammer. We've had a real desire to kind of make open groups, and we've allowed people to set their own groups. We have we've got about, 500 groups or something at the moment. People just set them up. It's really, really simple for us to do that, and we kind of eased off that control. So we tried to make it an attractive place, and a place where people could actually join without having too many barriers to face. And really the result of that is we try and make it normal. So even though we have, when we first started some of this stuff, we didn't have lots and lots of people on, we really tried to go, right, this isn't a special case. I've already said we don't kind of do a Yammer campaign, we do campaigns that are based on Yammer. But, we didn't write a special Yammer policy. We consider it part of our workplace. And because we consider it part of our workplace, we go, well, we've got workplace behaviour. What's the difference if you were having a conversation in the kitchen and you were, trolling someone or being nasty or whatever? It's no different. And the way that we deal with that makes it no different. So we really, really try to push that, look, this isn't just about conversation. It's a normal thing to do. It just happens to be this, channel that's maybe slightly different, but let's just think of it as a normal thing. Let's build it in, let's keep plugging away. If people don't come the first time we run around Yam Jam, that's not a failure. Let's just, we'll just keep doing it. And then we just make it that normal rhythm. And what we've seen is obviously that starts to uplift, and people start to go, oh yeah, well it's on Yammer, isn't it now? So I can go and find it. I can go and join in. And I think fundamentally what we've done with that is and I'm a true believer of this, that there's a real kind of cycle with our culture. When I look at our Yammer feeds, what I see isn't a load of posts. I see a reflection of our culture. And likewise, as people post and start to do things and role model, you see people following that. So it can really start to really drive your culture. But to me, that's about making it normal, because that's, it's where you work. So what does this look like in reality? I'll run you through a campaign that we did. This was our Brilliant Orange campaign. So we produced actually in August last year, we decided, okay, we wanted to sum up what was it like to work in Bankwest. What did it mean? So our comms team and our HR team worked together. They produced a manifesto, and we printed up. I should have brought one with me. I'm digital, so I don't carry paper. They printed up all these books, like notebooks, and in the front of the notebook was the statements around, what did it really mean to work for Bankwest? But as part of that, we made sure we sent everyone out one of these books. They got a flyer, and with it was a competition. So it said, okay, look, and Hero Points is our recognition service. So, okay, post a picture of you with your orange book using the hashtag #BrilliantOrange, and you could win 100 Hero Points. I mean, that equates to about $100. So, I mean, it's not like a huge amount, but we started to get all of these things come in onto Yammer. We pushed this thing over on our intranet. It's a SharePoint intranet, so SharePoint team can be happy. We'd already, as part of this, when we pushed this out, we put Yammer, Yammer embed on our homepage as well, and we used it as the My Feed, so that actually people could go in, and if they were logged into Yammer, they'd see they'd see their own personal feed on the homepage. But we took it over, we pushed a big thing out. That's the first page of our manifesto, was Blaze, about blazing a trail. So we pushed it into every channel. We have internal TV screens in our offices, in our head office. So we put up these big things flashed up on our screen. This is Jeff, who actually wrote our first mobile app, which was an internal thing. But what we did on every single bit of collateral, on every single channel, we pushed this hashtag, and I can't stress that enough. We love hashtags. I mean, these are the competition entries, or a selection of them. So there were people going out, taking their Orange Book home and in playing sport and in the stores. So our branch network, it allowed everybody to get involved, no matter where they were in the country. And they all felt part of this great big kind of cultural shift that we wanted to push. But this is how it kind of panned out in the year. So we launched in August and September. We did this first wave with a photo competition, and we launched the hashtag Brilliant Orange. We did a video competition in early September, and if anyone's interested, I won't run it now, but it's quite long. But someone actually animated, stop motion animation, about what it meant to work at Bankwest. They thought, right, great, I've got this platform, and we actually encouraged the people to contribute with that. It's quite funny, they did a skit on the Oompa Loompa song out of Willy Wonka, so it just kind of really captured what it meant. But what we found was that, when we looked at the stats around our hashtags, we could really see, a spike when we had this activity, and I don't know whether, hopefully you can see that. So that goes back to the beginning of 20th of August, and there's nothing. And then we launched this at the end of August, and you see it suddenly appear, the hashtag. And then we launched the video competition. When we launched the video competition, we got our executive team to do a song and dance routine, and we put that video up on Yammer. And so we get a spike of activity of people looking. But it didn't just kind of stop there. What it had done, it had tapped into that concept of what it had meant to be in Bankwest. So what we found was, as we ran other things, we ran a small business marketplace where we had colleagues could come in and we hosted them, and they could, if they were running a business outside of work, we allowed them to kind of have a little marketplace. There's Pete, who looks after our processing teams. He put out this post, and I've put it up purposely. That's the post he put up. No mention of Brilliant Orange on it, but this was about where we tried a flexible working trial. We had people who usually in the processing teams had to be in the same place. We said, no, you can work from home, you can do these different things. The only announcement of that was on there. And what we found was that we got spikes. We got these ripples. It's like throwing this stone into the pond and getting the ripples out. That when people felt there was this Bankwest activity that really summed up what it meant and how passionate they were about Bankwest, they'd naturally just tag it as Brilliant Orange. And it carried on. We had our we won a Pinnacle Award for our corporate responsibility, and we had our current MD, the MD left, and we had a new MD. And again, people were talking about it, and we had these spikes on the second spike there's the day our MD left, and everyone was going, thanks, Rob, you've been really Brilliant Orange. And it carried on even further. It didn't, it was really surprising for us, when we got through the year, and we ran other campaigns. And what's interesting is we were pushing other hashtags. So what matters was it's our kind of monthly video blog that our MD does, and we push it through the intranet. We send out an email so that people can get onto the intranet, but we also push it out on Yammer, and we have a Q&A directly after it, so people see the video, sets the topic, and then Q&A on Yammer. Obviously that got spikes. When we won Bank of the Year, that was kind of an unheard, it was an announcement that came out of the blue, but then we did a campaign on the back of being Bank of the Year called Bank Best. And what we found is the graph there at the bottom is our Brilliant Orange hashtag. So what was happening is there was this echo again every time, and what we were able to do is when we started launching these other campaigns, we could start to see that if we got this brilliant orange hashtag, it was actually resonating with our colleagues. We could understand that it was actually, there was a level of success because we knew that if people were using this brilliant orange hashtag, they were really associating that with what it was like to work at Bankwest. And obviously, by the time we won Bank of the Year, we'd really started to get people, thinking of Yammer as a normal place, as the place to go. Those three things that we put up before the start of the campaign. And this is our post from Rowan, our MD. He'd really kind of embraced this. And I mean, that's another thing. If anyone does change execs, don't give them the chance to say, I'm not doing this. We just said, you're doing Yammer, this is how it works, and you're on. And he went, yeah, okay, that's fine, I can get hold of people. And it allowed us that little access into the exec team. And we were also kind of, we worked with our external social team. It's funny, our execs, obviously, they're really interested in what the customers are saying. So our digital team will put up a report that goes to the exec team, once a week saying, oh, this is the kind of topics people are talking about, the customers. So we just kind of piggybacked on that and said, well, actually, now we've got stats, here's the stuff that's happening in our network. We can see this is what people are talking about. And that was both, that was reassuring for the exec team because they started to see, well, actually, look, okay, we've got these campaigns. We've got a campaign for Bank of the Year. Oh, yeah, it's showing up in the stats. Great, aren't we happy? But it actually also caused us a bit of an issue because we were just reporting the stats straight out of the system we use called Swoop. And what was happening is obviously that was reflecting what people were actually talking about. And because we'd driven this adoption, we'd gone from about 75% of our colleagues having Yammer at the beginning of this to 95 by the end, and we don't have single sign-on, we don't force people into it. It suddenly, people were talking about all sorts of other things. We weren't controlling those groups, as I said at the beginning. So it caused us a real problem because there was certain posts and certain groups that kept propping up in the reports. And the big one was pets. So we have a group, Pets of Bankwest. It started when we had the Guide Dog Association for WA. They come into workplaces and bring guide dogs to try and raise funds and awareness. And someone had put that on Yammer and was just flurry. Oh, great, we've got dogs in the building. And then someone said, oh, great, hang on, let's start this group, Pets of Bankwest. And then all of a sudden, from nowhere, we get this group where people are sharing cat pictures and dog pictures and all sorts of different things. And the person who set this up, completely unguided, the kind of group manager for this, what they do every month, they go, right, we're having a new picture in our profile for the group. So it's Pet of the Month. And they'd put a post out going, it's Pet of the Month time, put your pictures in. And straight away, people were putting all sorts of different pictures in. And that obviously raised all these questions with the execs. What is going on? When are people doing work? What's the value of this? Why do I keep seeing this? The irony was there were nine other groups and things that we were reporting that were all business related that were scoring quite highly as well. But hang on, there's pets in there. That can't be anything to do with work. Isn't this a waste of time? And I'm sure most people have had those kind of questions with these kind of social groups. But we had some stats behind this, and with the maturity models and various things, we were able to address that. I mean, I actually got hauled into our executive team and literally said, look, we keep getting Pets of Bankwest, what's going on? And this is kind of the things that I shared with them to really challenge their perception. So there were some real big benefits. And if anyone wondering, that's a guinea pig. That's my daughter's guinea pig. Pet of the Month in May last year. I was glad when we got that so we could join in. But what we really found is it was this real place where people could actually practice the skills that we wanted to see in the network. It was low risk. I've had several people come up to me during this week going, how do we get people in? They don't feel safe. They're not sure what to do. How do we get them engaged? And for us, this was right. Well, these groups do that, right? No one's going to fire you for liking a dog. No one's going to get really upset if you don't actually comment on this. But people could see that behaviour, and it really started to build that capability around using the system. The other thing it did was give people a real reason to return. And I can't stress this enough with social groups. They're actually really powerful. They give people a reason to come in to the network in the first place. But as they do that, they see the feeds, they see the other stuff that's going on, they see that other activity. So they start to get this rich experience about what's happening in the organisation. But they need that little push to go, oh, it's pet of the month time, I'm going back on because I want to get my pet of the month there, I'm going to go and post my dog picture. Or we had another chap came up to me, completely unaided, and he said, I didn't understand Yammer until I saw the vegan group. And we've got a vegan group, and it's where people recommend vegan restaurants. And it's like, this is brilliant, right? I've been looking for this. I've moved over to Perth. I've got no idea where to go. And suddenly I get this whole personal value. I can connect to these people that I would never otherwise do. And, you know, when we think about that model that's been talked about a lot this week, that outer loop, it really starts to function in there. And obviously, it builds these connections, and building these connections is really important because what we understand is when we put posts out from a corporate point of view, you know, we want them to filter through the network. And without those connections, that doesn't happen. You know, they just end up as dead silence. And it really creates these kind of strong ties between people. And it also creates some of these weak ties, you know, these idea that, oh, okay, I quite like that, and at least I've heard of you. I haven't spoken to you, but oh yeah, you did post that dog picture, didn't you? And it really fosters this reciprocation, this idea that these things are two ways. That whole thing about it being a conversation really lives in these social groups for us and really kind of set that benchmark. And so when I think back to that maturity model, you know, what I was able to demonstrate to our exec team, you know, this was actually nailing these 4 things right at the bottom of that maturity model. You know, we were really going through. Yes, we were getting adoption. People were going on. You know, yes, people were connecting with each other. They were sharing. So we were making these great inroads into where we were on this maturity model. And it really started to lead us into that area where we could, you know, get into that solving and innovating. And it made it kind of the normal place to go and do things. But the other thing it's really important for, and I think, you know, it is this concept, I guess, that they've summed up with this inner and outer loop. The other thing that it really is powerful for is breaking down these silos. So these ways that people will, you know, it's all well and good. If they're really focused on work, they're in their own bubble. You know, people talk about thought bubbles on Facebook and all of those things. But what I think you see in Yammer is almost the polar opposite of that. You know, you're connecting with people that you don't normally connect with. And this is a little bit based, again, with people at the session yesterday with Scott and Simon, that they touched on this. But I kind of see it, this inner and outer loop, in a kind of bit more granular way and a bit more of a kind of continuum. So you've got this idea that there's this wide outer loop where people can explore and connect, and there's lots of loose ties, really kind of an outer loop, if you like. And then, you know, we've got that bit where people are actually making more kind of conversational activity. So, but still on the periphery and probably quite large groups. You know, these are the, you know, something like our Unity group would probably drop into there. And then you kind of hit that, you start to merge into that inner loop and get this part where you can actually get teams forming and they're exploiting, you know, they're actually working on things and delivering activity. So the focus starts to get much more narrow. You know, at this explore stage, it's very wide, it's kind of very innovative kind of conversations and different things, and that's really the serendipity place. But then you start to go, right, hang on, if we've got an idea, it might come out of that explore point. We might engage a team to kind of think about it, and then we get work groups actually nailing it out and delivering it. And then ultimately, obviously, you can be on your own, or with, you know, maybe with a colleague just working on some things. But what was really interesting for us was that when we thought about other channels that we had to kind of foster this inner and outer circle, what did we have? You know, if we wanted to engage large numbers of people or have kind of big town halls, right, we only really had the choice of events. If we went down to that kind of team level and like, you know, you'd have one-to-one meetings, or you'd have bigger team bigger team meetings, but they, you know, they only get to a certain size and they become impractical. So we had very much a kind of a traditional way of doing that. Obviously, we have loads and loads of people that still use email. But I mean, email is probably your organization's biggest social network. But the reality of that is it's a closed network. It's totally reliant, and that's why it doesn't go out to that outer loop, because it's totally reliant on who you know, or that distribution list. You have to know who you want to send it to. And so what we found was Yammer was covering all of this for us. We're in the process of rolling out Office 365. We've got a trial of Teams, and I can see Teams, again, hitting at that bottom end, but even then it doesn't come out, and it's a recurring theme this week, it doesn't really get out really into that outer loop. And that advantage is that obviously if you're working in a team and you want to get stuff outside and check, then you can do it. And I guess what I really kind of see is in terms of what people are trying to drive by engaging in these groups is that, you know, on that inner loop side, it's all about delivering an outcome, whereas on the outside, it's all about an outlet for, you know, how people feel. So when we look at some of the groups we've got in Yammer, and this might give you some ideas, we've got we've got this mobile app that Jeff developed, and we've got a team who look at that mobile app and try and make improvements. So what they did, you know, they're operating in that little exploit space. Okay, we're going to start asking for feedback. So let's get onto there and let's really start to nail that through and work through that and actually ask people what they think. So we had this early adopters, a whole big group of people that they could roll out a trial version of our mobile app and get them to test it before we rolled it out to customers. And straight away, we're getting feedback, we're getting updates, we're getting saying whether it's working, how, you know, what works, what features we might want, because we're all Bankwest customers ourselves. We have things like our branches who are out. This is our Queensland, South Australia, and Victoria stores and lending groups. So they're holding meetings and they're putting up activities and they're showing that they're, you know, undertaking the things we want to do. This opening night principle that they're talking about in this post is this concept that when they go out into the floor of the store that they're in, that they want to be like an opening night performance and put all their effort in. And we've even rolled that even further. So we now have a colleague think tank. We launched this the other week. And this is where we've got 500 of our colleagues, and that's going to be our test bed for when we change anything, when we're looking at changing the way that we work. So we've got this diverse group that we can actually try and test on people. So you can see that they start to line in with this model. You know, the social groups drive that exploration phase. You know, the community groups, hit that kind of engage, and then we end up with those team groups. And again, we may move those over to teams, but you know, we'll see how that goes. But the other thing that we really start to work in, and this I'll get through this hopefully quickly so we can get to the other sessions, but what I came up with is this model for trust. So one of the things when you think about leaders, and they're like, well, what's the benefit of me for this as a leader? You know, why should I go onto Yammer? Why should I take that time? And what we did was look at a way that we think around it with trust. So when I look at trust, it's quite difficult to define. So we looked at it and we said, okay, well, there's part of it is your capability. How good are you at doing something? And then the other part is benevolence. How much do you like other people? What's your kind of, how do you get on with them? And when you think about those two things, you can go, okay, if you know someone, and you probably know people at work who nail out work all the time, really good at it, but you know, you wouldn't go out for a drink with them. You know, you've got this almost grudging respect for what they are because they may be so capable if they're right on that sort of top left side. Equally, you've probably got people that you know that are great to go out for a drink with, no idea what they do at work, no idea if they're actually doing any value. You know, it's very much affinity where you share your values. And then finally, if you get both of those things, what you'll find is you'll get this trust. And you know, this is where actually this person's a really good person and they do a really good job. You know, these are the people that we really want to be. And for, you know, this was really powerful for us when we started to look at this and when I started to talk with our leaders for this, because they want to be authentic leaders. So what we started to do was apply this to the stuff that they post onto Yammer and take a look. So when we think about our managing director, we've already seen this post. Quite obviously, Bank of the Year, he posts it up. Typical kind of respect thing. You'd expect him to do it. But he also actually set his own group up. He likes alternative music. He's also in the Lego group. I tweeted, if you've ever been up to Disney Springs this week, they've got the big Millennium Falcon in there, the Lego one. He loves Lego. It was like, he liked my post when I took a photo of it because he loves Lego. And we have a, you know, for the kind of official posts, and people worry about this, you know, we actually take care of that with our own persona for like Bankwest comms. So this is our kind of official voice in the network. We don't need the MD to do that. We let the MD be who he wants to be. And that helps map into that, that model. So what people see, even if they've never met him, they go, oh yeah, well, he's, you know, he seems, you know, certainly knows about the business, but actually he seems a nice guy. You know, oh, he actually likes the same music I do. Or, oh, he's a bit odd. Why does he like alternative music? Surely he should like hip hop or something. But that was the key for us. When we went back to this model, what we could do was really start to see, okay, if people post all the time and we have execs, you know, if they just post in that respect thing, okay, that's great, but that's where we even start people feeling stuff gets ghostwritten. If you do nothing but post, if you show nothing of your actual self, you just got your work persona on there all the time, you know, people will, even if you're not, people will think it's a, you know, the comms team writing it for you. We've actually had people say that, oh yeah, this particular exec, oh, that seems like someone's writing it, even though they're not. You know, that's the risk. Equally, if you're spending all your time in Pets at Bankwest and don't do any other work, then clearly people will start to go, well, you know, are you wasting your time? But it really allowed us to kind of show that benefits and give this coaching to our execs to say, look, you know, surely you want to be an authentic leader. Surely you want to do that. Here's a way that you can start to think about what you post and what you do so that you can really start to engage in the network. And they feel much more equipped to do that. So, you know, I've talked about the stats. I've talked about, you know, but Yammer isn't just a numbers game. You know, ultimately, it's about people connecting with people. And that's where they get the real value from this. It's that whole thing about shifting leadership from spans of control in that old style of working to spans of influence and actually recognizing that. And Yammer's a great place for building your span of influence, whether you're a senior leader or whether you're on the front line, it makes no odds. You know, you can actually build that span of influence. And it's never been about the technology. It's always been about the culture for us. It's always a way that, you know, it goes back to this whole concept of, you know, being brilliant orange, and that whole brilliant orange hashtag. It's a cultural thing. You know, if you get a lot of barriers, it's probably because, you know, there's cultural issues. It's not because of the platform. So if nothing else, I'd really urge you to try and make Yammer as normal as possible in your organization. Even though that can be painful, it might take a while to get some traction, but the more normal you can make it, the more you'll adopt it. Embrace the fact that you can get, you know, to get business value, you're going to have to give personal value. You've got to get people on the network. That's the only way you're actually going to get to that stage of getting business value. So embrace that personal value. Don't shut it out. Don't push people so the only thing they can post about is work. They'll only ever get respect and grudgingly, and the network dies. And really help people to build that trust. Really understand, you know, if people feel safe, if they can bring their whole self to work, then they'll bring that into the network and they'll bring that onto Yammer because it is just an extension of their workplace. And always remember to keep being brilliant orange. Thank you. If you need to go to, you really want to run to the next session, go. But if people do have questions, either ask them now, or I can be hooked onto LinkedIn, or I'm in the Yammer services update group. If you are on Yammer already, I can be contacted that way. So if you do have a question and want to ask it, come up to the mic. Otherwise, run away. Get ready for the roller coasters. No question? Oh, okay. Do you want to step up to the mic just so we can...
Okay. Do you have any stats on the non-social groups as to what areas of the company are doing that and what percentage of work is being accomplished through Yammer? It's kind of like, how do you quantify, we're spending all of this time and money on Yammer, and this is the benefits we're getting for it?
So roughly it's about 1 in 10 of the most active groups are the social groups. So 9 out of 10 are either work-related kind of team-based groups where they're talking about, you know, the activity they're doing, team building. Some of that may shift onto teams, but that's where that is. And then the kind of mobile group that was up there, you know, that's quite often hits the top when they do a new release in terms of the activity, and they get all that feedback. And, you know, for them, we haven't put a price on that, but, you know, for them it's invaluable because, you know, they can actually have some confidence around what's going to be released. So yeah, the social side, it's you know, it's something that everyone focuses on, but actually it naturally, you know, people tend to naturally form those groups around the work that they're doing. So if I can probably try and dig some stats out, but I haven't got any off the top of my head. So
Kind of a general.
yeah.
I got to imagine the head is going to say, well, I see all these people posting these pictures, what work are they?
Yeah, but I think that's the thing. I think it's about understanding that for those connections to be made, you know, if people are posting those things, what they're actually doing is building their skills and capability. And if we want people, you know, we have that ambition, like a lot of companies, we want to be seen as a digital company. You know, we've got to give people that opportunity to practice those digital skills. I think, you know, maybe in 3 or 4 years' time, if we're still getting lots and loads of those, it may be a completely different picture. But for now, you know, we're quite comfortable that that's actually equipping our people for what we want them to do in other spaces. You know, and I think if people are going to be rolling out to things like Teams, it may well be a help and practice. So another question.
So we've had trouble getting people into the individual groups, and it almost seems like, so we have about a third of the company is in all company.
Yep.
And the other groups, at most, there might be a few hundred people. So it almost, do you see people starting where they post everything in all company for a while until the momentum gets going and then break it up?
Yeah, I think you do, and I think that's where there's a real validation for the role of a community manager is around not, I mean, obviously they've brought out that new move function, but what I've been doing for a lot of that stuff is I would look for those, and I would, if I knew there was a group that was more appropriate, I share those into there, and I literally just put a little comment going, oh, I'm sure this group will have something to say on this, and share it in there. And what that does is two things. One, it obviously gets them to probably the answer that they want to get, but it also kind of demonstrates that, oh yeah, actually I ought to look for a group when I post again the next time. So that's how we kind of tackle it. It's almost using that all company and going, okay, these are probably more novice users, how do we move them? And let's keep educating and engage them rather than kind of chastising them. And just, I think once you get that healthy space and people are then really pleased to be members of the right groups and connect into those right groups. So I see that as a role of the community manager.
So we've only got about 14% of our company engaged right now. Some of your ideas there about the campaigns and also the social groups are really good. What are your thoughts on like gamification and involving people to kind of compete to get recognition and rewards?
I think it works to a level, but I think it's what I've seen where that's happened in other networks is that once you stop that gamification or someone doesn't push it, it dies off. So if you can find a more natural way to tap into those groups, I often say, go and look, you know, have a scout round. If there's, you know, you've probably already got some of these groups that are operating in you know, as working groups. I mean, we certainly have a diversity working group. You know, that unity group I spoke about is a working group. They actually meet up and do those things, but it's just engaging with them and saying, well, actually, if you want to get out to the rest of the organisation, here's a platform for you. So I'm not against it, but I've not really ever. I've only ever seen it kind of work for a little while. I mean, the competitions are good. You know, they get people on there, but again, that can drop off, and you end up having to do competitions all the time to get people on. Then is it actually that successful in terms of, you know, so it's not that numbers game. It's not necessarily the numbers of people on there. It's what are they actually doing once they get there. So competitions and gamification can actually kind of diminish the actual interactions that people are having. You know, if it just becomes like this to win something, okay, it's easy to do it and people will do it, but it doesn't always tap into their emotional side and that need for connection. So if you can get them into those social groups, that's where they start to really kind of foster that passion, because they're probably passionate about something, and it's just finding what that is. And that's why we let the groups go, and we just kind of, yeah, some will die off, but you know, others will go great guns.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Thank you. Oh.
Hi. Did you have any issues with people violating HR policies, for lack of a better way of putting it, on Yammer, and how did you handle that?
So I've only ever taken 2 things off Yammer in 4 years that I've been at Bankwest.
Okay.
Partly because, you know, we're a bank and risk and compliance is a massive thing. So, I mean, again, it's this whole thing about, does it reflect our culture? We put a lot of effort into keeping our risk down, so that may have a bearing on it. But I think people are sensible, you know, their names are against it. Which is, you know, the names are on there, so the MD's on there. They kind of self-moderate.
Okay.
The risk that we saw, and the one thing that we did get put up was it actually closed out a bigger risk. Someone took a photo of something. It had a credit card number on. They were finding these credit card statements in an in tray in the office, and they took a photo going, does anyone know what this is? There's no name on it, and it turned out it was a live credit card number. So clearly at that point, that's a no-no. We're taking that off.
Yeah.
But someone, once they identified that, went, oh yeah, but well, why is it sat in an in tray for 3 months? Because that wouldn't have even surfaced if it hadn't have come up onto Yammer. So whilst there was we had to take something down, it actually closed that risk out, and they stopped them sending those
Awesome.
out.
All right, thanks.
Cool. Thank you.